Cemetery Man is a 1993 Italian, or I guess Italian, French, German film to be exact. It was directed by Michele Soavi and stars Rupert, Everett, Francois, Hadji-Lazaro, and Anna Falchi. And if you didn't grow up here in the States, you might know the film better as Della Morte dell'Amore, and was based on a novel of the same name. Now, I'm still a bit of a noob with Italian cinema, and I'm still very much catching up, with the vast selection of Italian horror and, other genres. That said, this was my first time watching Cemetery Man, despite it being on my radar for probably the last 15 years or so. Guess I finally took the plunge. And honestly, I wish I had not waited so long, because I just had a blast with this. The plot follows cemetery caretaker Francesco Della Morte and his assistant Nagi, who both tend to the cemetery by day. But at night, they more often than not have to fight off zombies, or returners, as Della Morte calls them. I thought it was actually a really clever move to not call them zombies, because this is, at its core, it's not really a zombie film. I mean, sure, they are here, and they're here pretty often, but they aren't really the focal point. And Della Morte seems to mostly, pretty much keep it under control. And it's not like a nationwide pandemic like in just about every zombie film you've ever seen. This is definitely a horror movie, but it's also a bit of a dark comedy. I mean, I actually get Evil Dead vibes throughout this entire thing, which is just, it's great. I think there's definitely some Sam Raimi influence, no doubt. Rupert Everett to me, even looks like a young Bruce Campbell, and I do kind of wonder if that's at least partially why he was cast in the role of Della Morte. Either way, he's awesome. The zombies here really aren't that threatening either. They're relatively slow, they're dumb, and sometimes hilarious. I mean, Della Morte and Nagi aren't even really afraid of them. They just shoot them and bury them back in their graves. So Della Morte ends up falling for a widow while at her husband's funeral, and things get kind of weird. Real weird. The characters here are all great, especially Della Morte and Nagi, and if you know me, you know I need standout characters, and you know I need likable characters, at least a few, one or two is fine. Della Morte is, he's very likable, and mostly a good dude, but also kind of a dirtbag. He definitely has some Army of Darkness era Ash qualities, if you will. And I mentioned the Evil Dead vibes I was getting, but I was also reminded of Reanimator, especially, during some of the more out there edgy moments. And Nagi is the epitome of lovable. He's developmentally disabled with a heart of gold and is Della Morte's best and really only friend. And I feel like especially for the 90s, his character was written mostly tastefully, and I really have to give a lot of credit to Mauro Marchetti here for his beautiful cinematography work. He was very experienced at this point, but not exactly a veteran. But I feel like he's kind of the star of the show, even with limited locations. I mean, his shots of the cemetery and nearby forests and stuff just add so much atmosphere to this film. It's perfect, really. With all the dark blues and the setting, this would be a perfect Halloween watch, actually, and I think we'll be adding it to my pile for next year. And last, director Michele Soavi. He was also about as experienced as his cinematographer, so you won't see him mentioned alongside, Falchi and Argento. He wasn't quite there. He wasn't really part of that scene. That said, I do think his career definitely started out, much inspired by the Italian greats with films like Stage Fright, The Sect, The Church, all preceding Cemetery Man. The film bombed in theaters, but critics mostly favor it due to, Soavi's direction, making it stand out and memorable. I mean, it's now considered a massive cult classic among horror fans, and rightfully so. There was supposed to be a sequel back in 2011 or 2012, something like that, but it never happened. That's probably okay, but it could have been cool, I don't know. I'm giving Cemetery Man a 7.5 out of 10. It's not the most cohesive watch, but it's so much fun that I didn't really mind about the sometimes janky storyline. I'd recommend it to all horror fans, really, but especially fans of the classic Italian stuff, Sam Raimi, Stuart Gordon, stuff like that. Cheers, guys.